Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Kill Team 40k podcast and YouTube channel, focusing on giving you the strategies and tactics to siege initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan, and I'm joined by the Fulgrim trying to create his very own Emperor's Children chapter, Connor. How you doing, Stephen Connor?
I'm good. I'm assuming you're alluding to the fact that I now have a son.
Yes, you've been on some parental leave, delaying, basically you've been prioritising having kids and growing a family over a Kill Team podcast, which I think is very, very selfish of you.
I've been busy creating, and you've been busy deleting. That's what's been going on here, I think.
So for those that don't realise, had a little bit of a computer malfunction the other day where I was clearing out some of my downloads folders and deleted the podcast episode before I moved it across to the other file. So that was a really smart move, and it only cost us an hour and a half. So and some show notes time. So it was all good. It's all good. Luckily, you've had loads of spare time recently, Connor, so we can squeeze another episode in, and it hasn't really affected you at all. So it's not like you're trying to raise two children in a busy schedule and a busy life, but you have managed to find some time
to do the important stuff.
Again. So what have you been up to?
Well, I do have small snippets of about 20-30 minutes of free time to myself between the crying and the lack of sleep. And I've been doing some hobby, actually. I've been impressed with what the Knots guys are doing. So they made me pull my finger out and actually get some models, get gluing, get painting.
Awesome stuff. Any particular thing that you're working on? Are you gonna pop that surprise, or are you gonna keep it a surprise?
No. Let's go there. So as we know, I do like Tau. Big fan of Tau. Not a big fan of Compendium Tau, and then got a little bit bored of Pathfinders, or read that as they're too complicated for me. But so what I'm trying to do is play as a filthy Void Dancer player, and do a bit of hobby to get some XP25s looking like Void Dancers, which is pretty tricky, actually. I've bitten off more than I can chew, but it's fun. I'm enjoying it.
What I love is how you somehow managed to mash Khorne and Tau together. It's like I want something that I can just run at my enemy with and hit them in the face. But I don't want to get shot before I get there. But I also want to play Tau, which doesn't have any melee.
I tested them against George the other day, and we finished, and he said, I just didn't think you'd play that aggressively. I've been saying since day one, mate. I don't lie. Go all in.
He's just like, what are you doing?
He's all over me.
It kept him off his guard, clearly. But it's interesting that you're now picking up some Eldari, because you managed to time it absolutely perfectly, where you started your new conversion and a new Eldari team has come out.
This is the way to do it, I think. This is force the releases by picking up models, I think.
So you could have been, screaming in the face of your enemy with some howling banshees,
or striking scorpions,
some striking scorpions, and some dire avengers or something like that. In the new Blades of Cain, which is a pretty cool name.
Nearly Blades of Khorne, which is even cooler.
It's pretty close. And he is a god of war, so you would think they've probably given the Space Marines a pretty equally cool name, Connor, haven't they? What have they named the Space Marine Scout team?
They put all of their time for generating names into the Eldari, I think, because then they went, Scouts, Scout Squad, done.
Yeah, just Scout Squad, nice. It's like the most bland name that's out there.
It's like Ronseal, actually, to be fair. It does.
It does on the tin.
What are you playing as? Scout Squad? It's a squad of scouts.
Scout Squad. What do they do? They scout stuff. It's like, who are they scouting for? Well, just Ian and his mates.
Oh, yeah, just Ian. Yeah.
So it's just like...
just Ian and his Scout Squad.
They're obviously Ultramarines, right? Everyone who's a Scout Squad are Ultramarines. The most blandest Codex compliant bullshit.
No doubt.
It's like... Yeah, we're just going to be out here scouting. Yeah, that could not be a more boring name if they try.
The models do not look boring, though. The models look cool. I'm intrigued by them. They got, 3 heavy weapons I think I saw in there?
Someone's got it depends if the sniper's heavy. I'm assuming the sniper's heavy. Yeah.
That's true.
So this is my interesting thing, right? So I'm sort of looking at it from this looks to me like they've built a box around big 40k and kind of given it to Kill Team, which
probably, yeah.
insert every other kill team we've ever had, pretty much. But this one looks like it's the most extreme.
So, we'll take what we can get. We'll take it. I mean,
we'll take it. We'll take it. We're not desperate, but whatever sort of like off cuts that you have from 40k, we'll have that.
We'll get that round peg in the square hole. Just you watch.
But obviously, so in big 40k, they are 5-man squads,
right?
And per 5-man squad, you can have 1 sniper and 1 heavy weapon, and it's either a heavy bolter or a missile launcher. So I'm wondering if we're actually going to see 2 snipers, and it might be like the sort of subductor profile where you can have up to 2 snipers, a heavy bolter and a missile launcher. There's an Auspex dude, which probably, I assume,
that's cool.
Ignores obscurity, maybe removes cover from someone. I don't know which way they're going to go. Are they going to go like the Phobos one, like Phobos Strike Team? Again, that's a really cool way of talking about Phobos and what they do, not just Phobos Squad. But so like, I'm just a little bit bitter about it. Okay, I think it's a really bad name, and like they do so well with like so much flavor in the other teams that I just feel like this one it just missed the spot for me. Okay, it just missed the spot on the naming.
I think if you go in Space Marines, though, you're just boring and vanilla anyway.
It's going to be.
So that's what you get. You get boring vanilla names. But if you start branching out to interesting stuff, you can get the Blades of Cain.
The Blades of Cain. Well, I'd like to point out that I am not Codex compliant. So I won't be having any of this Ultramarine bullshit.
You're a Raptors man, aren't you?
Yeah. I think Raptors might be Codex compliant. I'm not sure. But Black Templars definitely aren't. We're on a crusade, motherfuckers. Anyway, so I've had a lot of swearing in the first 6 minutes. We probably shouldn't do that. Anyway, demonetized immediately. Please don't report us. We need all the help we can get.
Well, if you keep deleting all the episodes, yeah.
If I keep deleting the episodes, Connor's baby won't be able to afford shoes. So. But he will be able to afford an XV-25 stealth suit.
Don't know how that happened.
Is expensive. Right. Anyway, so what was that to? So scout squads. They've got various heavy weapons: shotgun, bolt pistol, and chainsword, or a bolter. They also showed a guy with a grapple gun, which I assume will be some sort of like, I was going to say scout. Obviously, it is like some sort of like forward-moving recon kind of guy. I'm expecting them to have like infiltrate and recon, maybe seek and destroy. I wonder
if the grapple gives him like fly or something like that.
I reckon it's got to be the same as the Phobos grapple, right?
Yeah, I reckon.
Or you know what? It would just be subtly different, so that it's annoying.
They get the commando grapple, like the Grot. He just picks a point. I'm going to go there.
And he's just going to go over there and just go to it. Yeah. That's not problematic at all in this game. So we're very, very smeary today, aren't we? Maybe it's just me.
I'm feeling positive. I'm genuinely feeling positive about it. And I'm gonna name drop here. How embarrassing is that? But when we're in Warhammer World, just happened to bump into Elliot, the guy that made the game, and we were talking about Kill Team. He just wanted to catch a part on his day off, but I made it talk about.
But you forced him. You backed him into corner. You will talk to me about Kill Team, and you will enjoy it.
But he said something really interesting about new release teams. So he said when they're getting built, I'm hoping I'm getting this right. They balance them against Vet Guard, Space Marines, and Commandos. So what they've got there, you've got your elite team, you've got your horde team, and then you've got a team like Commandos that just is a bit more interesting, has some sneaky tactics and stuff. And if they're balanced against those three, they're probably balanced against the rest of it. So I reckon these all land okay. That's what I'm hoping. And then we'll see from there.
And to be fair, we've seen from Chaos Cults and
that's probably why they've written in another data slate
from Chaos Cults and Exaction Squad that it's worked out seemingly perfect.
What is wrong with you today?
No, but hey, I agree. I think it will be fine. And so one thing I'd say as well is like the Eldari, and I know some people are slightly worried about the fact that they're going to have like a blend of 3 different teams, but I think we've seen that Inquisition actually done quite well on that. I'm sure that they'll have a little bit of a tweak maybe in the balanced data slate, but I'm not worried about it because I also know that the balanced team are so good at responding to it so quickly.
Yeah.
So sure, yeah, it might be, if one of these teams is weak or overpowered, I wouldn't worry about it. It'll be a thing for a month or two, and then they'll be brought into line with the rest of the teams. Because at the moment, genuinely, I think the game's in a pretty glorious state of balance. I've been working on this threat guide for all the factions, and it's interesting because you're going through being like, yeah, actually, almost every team has weaknesses, have strengths. They've got things they're good at. They've got gotchas, and they've got like strategies to beat them. There's very few teams where I'm going, I have absolutely no idea what to do against this team. I think Commandos are maybe a little bit strong, but it's so close. It's not
strong, is it?
Yeah, it's not like, oh, you're playing against a team you're not going to win, which is a nice place to be in. So I think the new teams look pretty good. I'm interested to see what the new rules are going to be for the terrain.
For sure, yeah.
So my concern is if it is a big hole in the middle, right? Where do the objectives go? And does that mean that we're going to have like objectives floating on the pillars?
Well, it says we've got 9 special objectives with the box, don't we? So I know you get your narrative stuff in most of the boxes.
I reckon that's got to be narrative, right? Like that to me seems like it must be narrative. And I wonder if actually the way that this will be played is just all the bits are like there's no hole in the ground. It's just a cardboard board, and you play on top of it with the bits. If that makes sense, because it's going to be very difficult to space out objectives in a coherent way. You've got the
middle platforms, didn't you? So I know there is a hole in the ground, but there are 1, 2, or 3 platforms that are floating in the middle.
Yeah, this is true. So maybe it's going to have some. And it's the thing, we don't know, right? It's total guesswork, and I think a lot of people are quick to go, oh, this will be bad or whatever. I'm cautious, like I want to see what the rules are.
I really,
intrigued. I want to be like, how are they going to make this work? Is it? Are they going to be entirely new? Is there going to be an entirely new competitive map set that goes with it, or is it just going to be something standalone? I also think that
the premise of being on an oil rig and like fighting it out, I just think that's really cool already.
It's very Spec Opsy. It's very like US Navy SEALs, isn't it? Like climbing on oil rig and fighting over it. I do like that. That is cool. With my like map design hat on, I hate that phrase, but I'm a bit worried about what the terrain physically looks like, in the sense that it's a bit like Nachmund, where it's hard to do visibility blocking, so you'll be very reliant on obscurity and or being sat in heavy cover. So silent weapons.
This is true, but let's also not forget this is a brand new season. We were saying the same thing about Into the Dark.
Exactly.
Like, open, and then went, it's close quarter battle, by the way. So indirect's now only 3 inches and like 5 foot lethal 5s and stuff. Like all the doors have to be opened. It's a very different game. So there might be rules like that. Maybe it's going to be like too windy to take long shots or something. I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
We'll see.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that, or what the rules come out. I think because the box sets are now divided between teams and the terrain, I think we'll see a lot less people buy the terrain, just because I think most kill team players don't want that much terrain, and therefore they'll have a bit of internal debate as to, do I get
another 1 or 2 into the dark sets?
Yeah, so potentially, if you've bought every box set, you've already got 8 sets of terrain, 4 into the dark and 4 open world, and then getting another 4 sets, I think we should get 1. It seems unlikely. So I wonder, this is my looking ahead into the future thing, is are TOs going to struggle to crowdsource this terrain, because far less players are going to be buying it. You can't do the Into the Dark thing where you bought the boarding actions and you get 2 sets for 1. So from a TO perspective, that would be quite interesting. But if the rules are really exciting and it plays really well, then I'm sure we'll see people pick it up. So I'm hopeful. We'll see what GW comes out with. Purely looking at the plastic, I have questions, but I'm excited to see what the rules say when they come out as well. And I can guarantee you, Connor, the second I hit upload on this, Warhammer community is going to release those rules, and we're going to look like Muppets. Absolute 100%. Muppets. Elliot, we know where you work, all right? You do this.
It's not his fault.
It's not his fault. But we're just out here trying to make a podcast, man. And he's out there trying to enjoy his pint on a Sunday without being assaulted.
I've been accosted, yeah.
He's just being like, for goodness sake, can you guys leave us alone? No, he was so nice.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like he's out there making a game which I assume he enjoys, and he's just like, oh, just have a quick pint with a mate and chill out, and and then suddenly he's like, he's done it on a Kill Team tournament day, so everyone's like, let's go talk to the designer. And I can imagine he was just like, I have to be nice to you, but please leave me alone now.
That didn't come across. That didn't come across if that was the case, but.
Yeah,
I know what I'd be like if I was in his position.
Well, you'd be like 6 pints down by then.
Shirt off.
Screaming blood for the blood god.
Absolute disgrace.
Why have you got a chain axe, Connor?
Where did that come from? You didn't have that with you.
Is he a werewolf? He's screaming at the moon. Okay, we should probably get into the first of the Patreon priority questions, because there's a bit to cover tonight, and I think it's probably worth us getting cracking. So, do you have the first question for us, Colin?
I do, and I think someone's excited that you've had a lot of practice against Phobos now. So, question 1. How best to play Phobos into other elites such as Intercession, Legionary, or just Ian?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the first thing you want to do is take that Phobos team, put it in a box, and take out Kazakin, and then start playing. No, I'm joking. So Phobos are a really interesting team because the common way a lot of teams deal with these teams is like activation advantage, last and first activations, and using their like high AP weapons to take out key models. And you can therefore trade really well, because if you can guarantee that each of your AP2 weapons gets 1, maybe 2 kills, suddenly you could have tricked that elite team really, really quickly and achieve quite a big advantage. And additionally, you can wait them out until they've done all their objectives, or they've moved all their models, and then you can move forward, take objectives, and you can play against them. Phobos, you don't have that advantage. You're also 6 operatives, so you can't just wait them out. You have to deal with them there and then. And therefore you're locked into this very weird dynamic where their models are generally more durable and more killy than yours, and you have to use your tricks and your Gar and everything else. So there's one of the Spanish guys that I spoke to was part of Ace's team, and he was talking about why he enjoyed Phobos, and it's the control that you can apply upon your opponent. And I think that's a really good starting point for your philosophy, right? It's like you are not going to outkill your opponent. You're going to outcontrol them. And so by that, what I mean is you want to control their movement. And there's a few ways that you can do that, which is the placing the mine. So what's it called? I have to look it up now. That's really annoying me.
Is it the Haywire mine?
You're already over it. The Haywire mine. I knew there's a reason we had you on the show, Connor. The Haywire mine is exactly what you're going to use, because what that does, right, is it makes their movement stop right there and then, right, and potentially subtract an APL, which is really cool, because what it means is that you, like, if they are too far away from an objective, they're not going to be able to make it to that objective. And then the other thing you can use to combine your and it also stops charges, sorry. But to combine your control is that Omni Scrambler, right? So you're going to delay your opponent's activations. And on a small elite team, that can be really impactful. You can basically say you're not activating that model until I've had to go with almost most of my team, which is going to give you like a control on their movement and their sort of like priority of activation. So they have to then suddenly commit more to their threat saturation of you, which then puts them in a more exposed position as well. So to do that well, you are going to need to prioritize those threats. There's no point in you omni-scrambling someone right at the back of the board that doesn't really affect anyone. But you want to prioritize the things that are going to get any chance of a double kill, any chance to get VP and kill, and then after that, just things that are going to kill you or score VP, right? So, like, if you're looking at a model and you know that they're going to capture an objective, they're going to kill 2 guys, then you go, okay, that guy is the priority to deny this turn, unless maybe the mine is protecting you from that happening. So something like that. So something like an anointed hates the haywire mine, right? Because you can go, well, if I put it in front of the anointed, he can't charge me because his movement stops, and he's just going to sit in the open like a lemming because he can't shoot. That sounds absolutely perfect to me. So you go, well, the anointed can go ahead and try and charge my guy with the mine, and the other guy over there, I'm going to omni-scramble him, whoever it is, maybe it's the champion. So you're going to control who they can operate when, and sort of make them play people inefficiently, if that makes sense. And that also happens on turning point 1. So that's really easy to think about on turning point 2. But let's say you're playing loot and you want to look at how they're going to rush forward and take objectives. Well, maybe you can look at them and go, right, looks like their icon bearer is going to sprint forwards and is going to take this objective over here, and then he's going to be effectively pseudo 4 APL, and it's going to be really hard for me to take that back off of them. So instead, what I'm going to do is omni-scramble that icon bearer, and then I'm going to move and dash my Reaver and free mission action because I'm using Vanguard. They're going to take that objective. Well, I'm going to secure it. And you go, cool. And then now there's no way they can take that back off you, right? And it's using those sorts of like turn 1 analysis to force those matchups in a certain way that works really well for you. And remember, you can redeploy as Phobos. So maybe your mind's in the wrong place and your infiltrators can't see a certain key model. Well, like, redeploy, get in the right position and do that and solve those problems. And finally, when it comes to movement, you have to remember where your advantages are. So Phobos are really fast. You're going to get pluses to your movement. You're going to ignore traverse. You're going to get bonuses to climb, etc., etc. So use these advantages. Use height to your advantage. If you're going to forward deploy, if you're going to run up forward and hide out, well, take height somewhere where your opponent can't charge you because you're too high up and they can't get within 2 because you're outside of shooting range or whatever. Try and use barricades to slow down key choke points that you can move over and have those threat ranges really, really well in your favor with the +1 movement, so you're always able to get out there and do what you want to do first. And I think that's kind of like one of the keys. And remember, you can use more barricades with one of your CP ploys, but we're going to talk about CP in a second. But just think about that. So that's like the movement side of things. The next thing I want to say is like really work to control the enemy's shooting. So we're talking about control again. So you have smoke grenades and you have the ability to reconceal yourself. And I think that's important for you to go, okay, right, well, where can I throw a smoke grenade where my marksman can shoot twice and not be shot back? So maybe they've exposed their plasma gunner in a certain way. Your marksman can flip to engage, pop a smoke grenade right in front of them, double tap their plasma gunner, and not be shot back. Like, that is an incredible benefit. And you can do that even against a whole variety of opponents, like Justine and his mates. You might be able to do exactly the same, where you can double tap for free and not have return fire. But also, like, look at that ability to reconceal. Maybe that's your solution. So set yourself up turn 1 so that you can double tap and then you can just pull back and just reconceal and to stay alive. And that's kind of like one of the things that I think people need to consider when they're using this team, is you always have the option to just remain safe, if that makes sense. So either you run away a certain distance or you just reconceal or whatever it's going to be. So here's an example. Maybe you're on an objective, you're playing loot, and you flip to engage, you shoot someone, and you completely whiff, right? Like you've done no damage, and you think to yourself, well, do I shoot them again and do exactly the same thing? It's like, or do you just loot the objective and just reconceal? and just force the opponent to spend more turns coming to you, because you're not going to get Overwatch, probably. Like, you're not going to Overwatch. And so therefore you have to be like aware of this like sunk cost fallacy of, well, the first shot didn't go well, so now I need to shoot again because I'm going to make up for it on the second shot. It's like, well, you're probably not, right? Like, unfortunately, that's just the way the dice work. You're probably not going to make up for it in the second shot. And as a result, you just need to just chill and focus on scoring. Because this is kind of like my mindset with this team is you are not going to outkill your opponent. You have to outscore your opponent. And so at all times when you're playing this game, you have to be thinking, how am I going to get those points? How am I going to get these points? How am I going to get these points? And there are a few things that I think are going to help you do that. And one of them is Reavers, right? So their main ability, Terror, is the fact that they can go on an objective, they can force your opponent to become -1 APL for objective control, and then suddenly, you're now controlling this objective where your opponent thought they were going to get it before. And because you're 6 models each, like you're effectively pseudo 4 APL / their 2 APL, and now you're going to be like, well, I can just throw one Reaver onto this model, onto this objective, and you're going to have to commit a lot of resource to go after it. And so that's going to work really well. And the other thing that you do really well is action economy. So if you hold your guys back, you can do free mission actions, you can move forwards a long distance, and you can double shoot. Whereas, your opponent might have to move and dash to get in range with you and then only shoot you once. Well, that's pretty good. And if you're playing like loot or secure, well, now they're going to move and dash to get on your objective, but they need to shoot you, but they don't have the APL to then take the objective. So like your ability just to be more APL efficient is always there. However, the only way you can do that is through CP efficiency, right? So you can generate more CP as a team, but you need your leader to be doing that, which costs actions. So you have to be constantly making that debate between, do I spend an action point to have more CP, or do I just, do more shooting, more killing, wherever it's going to be? And the P1 ploy is a CP, shoot twice is a CP, move fast is a CP. Like, you can suddenly very, very quickly run out of CP. So I think you have to be really cautious on every turning point with just how much CP you're spending and just how much you want to be, or how much you need to spend. So like, if you look at across the board and you see your opponents entirely on conceal, and maybe they have like one flip from they've taken infiltrate, whatever, you think to yourself, like, am I going to shoot twice a lot? Like, probably not, right? So you go like, I'm not going to pay for shoot twice. Do I need the extra APL on turning point 1 and the extra inch of movement to make it to the objectives? Do I need it to score the objectives? Maybe, maybe not. Like, you have to look at the board and analyze it. And then you got to go to yourself, okay, well, if I don't need that extra APL, or that free mission action, and I don't need to shoot twice, and I don't need any shots, or maybe on turning point 1, I'm not spending anything at all. And you can sort of like force these outcomes in the way that you want them to go. So that's kind of like the main points that I think you have. So just to quickly summarize, you want to outscore, you won't outkill them. You need to accept losses or sunk cost fallacies where they've happened. You really want to use that APL manipulation for objectives. Consider your action economy as well, and try and focus on that. Prioritize and focus down threats. So, leaving a legionary on 1 wound isn't helpful. Just focus that threat, make sure you kill them out, and fully remove that model from the game. Control their shooting, control their movement, control their melee, and then analyze how they position turn 1 and adapt if you need to. Those sort of like will be my key sort of points, I guess, Connor. But you've played as quite a lot of elite teams. Is there anything that you think you would throw in there as retorts?
I think I agree with what you've said. I'm not even going to pretend to say that I've got anything clever to say about Phobos. I'm going to leave that to the Spaniards and to yourself. I think I find them a really challenging side, but you've drafted some good principles there that I would be keen to have a go at next time I picked up Phobos and have a look at them. But yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome stuff. Well, Connor, if you thought that was helpful, and maybe some of the listeners are out there thinking to themselves, you know what, that was actually quite a good tip on Phobos, and I'm excited to try and do that. And maybe they want to get their own questions answered on the show, or maybe they just want to throw us a bit of support? Is there a way that maybe someone who's listening to the show could do that?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, get your Phobos and bring them down to Darksphere on 25th and 26th of November. We're holding a Turning Point Tactics tournament. It's across Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be an absolute blast. Just to clarify, because we have had a few questions, we struggled a bit with the way the ticket gets sold. So there is only one ticket for sale, and that can be used either for Saturday only, Sunday only, or Saturday and Sunday. It's more about your time schedule, because we understand that it's hard to commit to a whole weekend. Whatever you choose to do, you're going to have a fun time. There's going to be prizes. I'm correct. There's prizes on both days, isn't there, Ryan? Everyone's going to get a gift.
Yep. And everyone who rides should get a gift.
Especially if you're a patron. Ryan's organised a little bribe as well, just to sweeten the deal.
A
little bribe. Yeah, it's going to be fun. You're going to meet so many like-minded people. I think last check-in, there's still 12 tickets available. So if you're on the fence about it and you weren't sure, come along. You'll have a blast. I guarantee it. Next, if you were thinking about becoming a patron, it would cost you as little as £3 a month, and that would get us a little pot of paint. Like I said, I'm doing some hobby now, so I need some Skull White actually. I need to get that done. But what does that get you? Well, that first of all gets you early access to all Ryan's notifications that he's deleted the video, as well as some exclusive Patreon-only content. It gets access to our Discord channel full of like-minded people and interesting memes, ideas, strats and guides on there. And then finally, if you can't afford £3 a month, which I get, it is hard for some people, just like and share this video. And lastly, perhaps you've been excited, as we have been, by the release of these new teams. If you wanted to buy those teams, if you actually buy them, if you're in the UK, if you buy them through Element Games, we've got a link below. Or if you're in the US, if you buy them through Noble Knight Games, again, we've got our own affiliate link in the description below. Then that's another way where you can support the channel, doing it that way.
Absolutely crushed it. And everyone's going to be talking about how you nailed affiliate for weeks.
I've been practicing in the mirror. I've got all this free time now.
Holding a baby, saying affiliate in the mirror.
It's going to be his first word, poor kid.
Why does Uncle Ryan make me say affiliate so much? It's like you're in training. Shh, you're in training.
Be quiet, Reboot, Vulcan, Agron, Slater.
He's got to join quite a few other of the 12 children that you're trying to build. It's 12, isn't it? I think it's 12.
How many Primarchs are there? I'll figure it out. Yeah,
we'll figure it out. You just keep pumping them out until you're ready. Alrighty, let's press with the next patron priority question, Connor.
Absolutely. Question 2. Hunter Clade have a massive problem against melee teams that have got more wounds than them. For instance, against Fulgor Ravagers or against Galapox. Is this just a bad matchup that these teams struggle with, or is it just poor combat design? How do you play these teams around this threat?
Okay, so I think this is a great question, and it's the way I'm going to answer it is I'm going to go back to that sort of, again, key principle. I'm sort of a principles player, but a key principle of like asymmetric matchups, right? So if you were the Galapox player, what would you be like really scared of seeing against you? And usually it's a team that's going to shoot you off the board before you ever get to melee, or deny you from getting to melee, right? So I think, and this question's come from a patron who's a Hunter Clade player, and I think I'm going to answer it from that mindset. But this can read across to other teams as well, right? So I think since the balanced data slate changes, a lot of Hunter Clade players, because they had the golden days of having 6 Vanguard and 5 Sicarians, or 6 Skitarii, I should say, because they can range as well, but 6 Skitarii and 5 Sicarians. Now they go into every game going, well, I'm going to run 5 Sicarians. And then they go, well, why aren't my Sicarians doing good against this threat? You know, like I'm running into these beastmen and they're just dying, and I don't want them to die. So, and that's because you only have 4 attacks and you need to roll a crit and you need them not to parry it. And even if you do kill them, you're taking a bunch of damage on the way in, etc., etc. So here's my sort of like my view on it. Like, if you know your opponent is better at melee than you, then why would you try and melee them? You know, so like if you're running into Gellerpox, you know full well that as you go into that fight, they're just going to beat you in melee. So instead, this is where I think you try and force it into your advantage. So, like my first question is going to be: if you take another Vanguard and go up to 11 activations, does that significantly help your matchup? So, like against, let's say, Felgar Ravager is one of the examples. Well, they're 10 models, right? So, if you have 11 activations, you're suddenly going to get the last say on each of these turning points. And that can be really, really impactful in turning point 1. And it can mean you get a model into the right place at the right time. And additionally, in that matchup, well, we know that they have pretty terrible reliability in melee. Maybe if they're fighting against some guys who are giving an injury aura buff and they have no rerolls from your Sicarians, well, now suddenly they've got a bunch of guys running towards you that need to get into melee that aren't very good when they get there. And if you then move your infiltrators forward and your Vanguard forwards, well, you've effectively got bolt guns, right? So if you can do a lot of damage to them, suddenly they're in one hit range of being killed in melee, or they're in so they can't charge you and fight you, right? They're still only 2 OPL on objectives, and they're at risk now of being killed by another round of shooting. So they have to activate this model to try and do something with them. But what do? Do they charge you and die, or do they sit on an objective and die, or do they just pull back and give you the objective? So that's kind of the way I look at it, is you want to force your advantage where you have it. And I think Hunterclade have access to some pretty violent shooting, and I think you should be using that. I also think you should be using it in combination with the movement advantage that you can get. So for an entire turn, you can give your guys +1 movement. So you can be moving up 7 inches and shooting people. You have the ability to APL buff models, and that's the way that I would try and force that matchup to go, right? So I would look to space my models so that my Sicarian anti-reroll aura is protecting my models, but also have them spaced such that you're not giving your opponent double charges, right? So you don't want them to be hiding in melee with you. You want them to be forced into potentially charging your big 40mm bases. You want to block routes where you can, and then you want to have those sort of counterpunch options where you can move up and do damage. And I would take things like those taser goads that do the handout -1 APL. You know, if you can force people to be stunned or whatever, and I think they're all lethal 5. But like, you know, as soon as someone then goes up and hits you, sorry, just for clarity, I think you should take power weapons on the Sicarians, but like taser goad and your leader. You can then, like, you know, you can bully them, and you can have a 3 APL thing where your leader charges forwards, hits someone with a lethal 5, and then shoots someone with a blast pistol, whatever it's going to be. So that's kind of like the way that I would try and do it, is space out to avoid you giving your opponent those double charges where they can hide in combat. And it's about 3.5 inches, or just over 3.5 inches for a 40mm base is the spacing you need to have. I try and block those routes with your melee models if you can block routes. And then I would use my shooting to my advantage. You know, against those teams, you want to have basically an entire board of like engaged models, and you want to be moving up and just doing damage. And as soon as you hit those teams which are hitting on 4s base, and you take away their rerolls and you make them injured, like, they are just so unreliable. They're going to whiff so frequently against you. And then their entire game plan's gone wrong, right? Like, if they're just going into you and they're whiffing, well, sure, that's worked out pretty well for you. And then if you can force it so that when you shoot them enough, they've already been like weakened to the point where even if they charge your Sicarian, they're within 1 hit range. Perfect. Like, sure, charge me, do 4 damage, I kill you, win. It's on your turn. You know, that's a perfect outcome in a way. So that's kind of what I would try and do. I would see where you can use that activation advantage. I would, you know, focus on picking off those easy to kill models where you need to, and reducing the big ones into damage ranges or damage breakpoints that make it unfavorable for them to be able to get the melee outcome that they want. I think that's everything, Connor. Anything you can think of on that one?
No, that was nice. That was good. Nice and concise. Next question, then.
Next question.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to deal with anxiety arising from Kill Team. I believe that Kill Team is a skirmish game that really ramps up the pressure more so than any other games. Have you got any tips for getting past this while remaining competitive?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think this is actually a really common thing. So you're definitely not alone in asking this. There is probably there's probably a whole bunch of people that are too nervous to even ask the question, right? Which is the sort of like
Ironic. Yeah.
the irony of it, right? But that's kind of where we are, and I would be lying if I said that even I've played a lot of tournaments and at those top tables where I'm getting into the later rounds, a little bit of me is like, ooh, I can feel this, I can feel the pressure. So it's definitely a common thing. You're definitely not alone. I think sadly one of the best things to calm your nerves is experience. So if you go out and you play lots of tournaments, it becomes easier every time, which doesn't help you for when you come into your first tournament. So but it will get easier is my point. But I do have a few tips. So I think there's a few ways to break this down. So we have like the pre-tournament nerves, then you have like the actually in tournament nerves, and a few other things as well. So what I'll do is I'll start with the pre-tournament nerves. Okay, so I think there'll be a lot of people that are debating whether or not they should sign up for a tournament, and what I'd say reach out to the TO, just send an email and be like, hey, I'm a new player and I'm debating coming. Can you like sell it to me or not sell it to me, but what I mean, like, can you let me know what it's going to be like? And they'll let you know what their tournament's like and what the player base is like there. And then you can make a slightly more informed decision, because I think as soon as you start that conversation with the TO, you will then know that there is a person there who understands why you're coming, understands a bit about you and can offer something to you. And then when you get there, they will make an effort to welcome you in. I know Jason definitely does this. Whenever there's a new player that's thinking about coming down, he's like, dude, come down, and he will then go out his way to host them and make sure they have a great time. And I'm pretty sure every TO will do that. So that'd be my first thing, is just reach out to the TO and be like, hey, I'm just touching base. I want to know more about this tournament. And then they will help you just make that initial, step to get there. And then once you're signed up, I think the next thing is going to be setting a win condition that you can be happy with. But you also have to be a bit realistic. Okay, so I think you want to set some progressive goals. And I think the way that I would say it is like, it is perfectly acceptable for you to say, my big win condition for this tournament, my first ever tournament, is just to go to the tournament, right? It's just to play 4 games of Kill Team in a day, because that in itself can be a bit of an achievement. Like maybe you play once a month, maybe you play, once every 2 weeks, whatever. Suddenly you go, I'm going to play 4 games in a day. That could be, initially a bit daunting, but then once you've done it, you go, oh, actually, you know what? I can play within the timelines. I can remember my rules, and having done it all in a day, this actually feels much more comfortable to me. But you won't realize that you can do that almost until you go and do it, right? So that's the first thing. And I think once you've done that, you can go, all right, well, I've played my first tournament now, and maybe you go in and you just lose all 4 games, and you go, you know what, that was that. I didn't win anything, but I did my win condition. I got there, and then you can go, all right, my next win condition is going to be to win a game, and you can then go, right, I know my rules, I know my team, I'm going to go forwards, and I'm going to try and just set out to win 1 game, and then I'm going to win 2 games, now I'm going to try a 50% win rate, whatever it's going to be, and you can just build these progressive goals that get you experience for the game. And as you do that more and more, you're sort of breaking down this big competitive experience of, I need to go there and get first place, into these very bite-sized manageable chunks, right? And you can go, actually, each time you do it, you've got a little win, and that win's going to boost your confidence. And every time you go to a new tournament, you're going to play new players, you're going to play new factions, you're going to play against these new teams. That's going to grow your knowledge set of the game, and that's then going to mean that when you go, get to those higher league tables, and you look across the table and you see another team, you're going to go, all right, well, actually, I know what this team does. I know what my team does, and going forwards, I know roughly how we're going to perform, and doing that's going to help. So then I guess the next thing is going to be like tactically in game. How do you improve, right? You've got to that stressful point in the game, and you're like, right, I need to try and make it through this. So I think that starts right from the beginning of the game, and back to setting a win condition. I think if you so the classic spear is just to say, I'm here to have fun. I think that's a fine outlook to have, and that's a good outlook to have. I think a slightly better internal narrative to have, and this is something that I'm shamelessly stealing from Vanguard Tactics, but I think it works really well. Is I'm here to give my opponent a good game, right? Which encompasses both of those things, right? So it means that I'm going to make sure my opponent has fun, but equally, I'm going to make sure that I challenge my opponent. I'm going to stimulate them mentally and I make them work for it, right? And that's kind of like your little things. I'm going to make sure my opponent has a good game, and the way you do that, and this is kind of like the self narrative that you want to go is like, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. How about make my opponent have a good game? And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to score the most points I can. And just whenever you're like debating between an action, going, oh, there's so many different options here. Just ask yourself, what do I think is going to score myself the most points right now? Like what action here gets me VP, which one doesn't? And just go for the ones that get you VP, right? And so you're forcing your opponent to try and score more, and you're going to make the game naturally closer by doing so. And then this is the progressive thing that I want to try and bring on. The next thing that I think you should do, and is when you started going, I'm getting quite good at scoring quite reliably points now, is the next question is, well, what can I do right now to deny my opponent more points? And then what has a bigger delta? And then that's where you're going to start looking at is, what is the biggest delta I can achieve in VP right now? So can I deny my opponent 1 point and gain myself 1 point? Well, that's better than me just scoring 1 point. Can I deny my opponent 2 points but not gain any points myself? Okay, well, that's still pretty good. And maybe I can score that next point on the next activation that I do. So yeah, that's a 3 point swing. I'm happy with that. And that's kind of like the mindset that you want to be doing going forward. So I think that's kind of like the progressive route that I think you should take. And that's going to maybe help you out getting into those higher league games. And I guess finally, like maybe you're on a big win streak, right? And you're entering the big leagues and you've won like 3 games in a row and you're like, oh my God, this is the final. This is like, really, really important. And I could win the tournament on this game right now. And the pressure's like almost getting to you. So there's a few things that I would say to yourself as a self-talk to get you in the right mindset. So one of them is, I'd say, like, everyone's in the same position, right? Everyone deserves to be there. You deserve to be there just as much as your opponent does. Do not talk yourself out of the fact that you deserve to be there. Okay, like, you've played well, you've rolled well, you've done the right things, and that's what your opponent has done. It is weird how many times I think people talk themselves out of a victory before they even play the game against me. You know what I mean? Like, that they'll just go, I'm playing against Ryan, I'm going to lose now. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you have a very good opportunity to win this game. And I like to point out, many, many people have beaten me. So, like, it is totally, totally achievable. And I am still, working really hard to try and get the win. And there's no reason why people couldn't do exactly the same thing. So that's the first thing, is don't talk yourself out of it. You're in the same position. Everyone's under the same pressure, and go into it with that. And I've got 2 little bits of advice that other people have told me over the years. So when I was in the Navy, one of my friends told me I was going to give this big brief in front of a big audience of people as like a speech and sort of thing. And I was, I was a little bit nervous about it because I was going to do a lot of public speaking and give this brief. And my friend was just like, look, you're the expert in this. No one in that room knows more about this than you right now. So just go into that room and be you and just talk about what you know and what you do, right? So when you go into that matchup and you're like, oh, here I am, I've got my, whether it is Hunter Clade, I'm playing against someone with their Galapox, just be like, well, actually, I am the expert in this game right now. I am the expert in Hunter Clade. They're the expert in Galapox, but I'm going to give that opponent a good game with my Hunter Clade. And that's kind of like the thing I would say is, your opponent doesn't know your team better than you, so don't worry about it. You deserve to be there and go forwards. And then finally, this is something my mum said to me on a few of my major assessments going through both my school life and my military career, was, you just send, like, quite pithy, just carpe diem, right? So, like, you're there going into this game, you just got to go, I'm just going to see you today. I'm going to look for any mistakes you make. I'm going to look for some hot dice. I'm going to look for, whatever it is that you want to do. And I'm gonna make the most of it, And I think if you have these outlooks, you're gonna have a really good game, and you're gonna force your opponent to work hard for it. If you win, then you did an awesome job. You applied all of your own lessons. You demonstrated your knowledge and your ability with the team. If you lose, well, you just added to your opponent's epic story on their route to victory. So that's not really a loss. And you probably learned a whole bunch of stuff about their team and synergies and stuff that they can do going forwards. So you just became a stronger, better opponent for when you next meet. And I think that's kind of like the self-talk you have to have going into these tournaments, is you're really losing nothing and you're winning everything, every game you play. And like embrace that, that what you're giving to the community by turning up, right? Even if you lose all 4 games, you might think, I've lost all 4 games. It's really bad. No, you haven't. You just gave 4 opponents an awesome time and an awesome story on that weekend. And therefore you've contributed to the community in ways that, other people staying at home almost haven't done. And so that's what I think is something you could do, and a self-talk that I think is helpful to help de-stress yourself a little bit going forward. So hopefully that's of some use, Connor. Anything you think I've missed or things that you would want to throw in yourself?
No, you've done a good job there. I'm just like thinking about, because I think we all remember that first tournament we've been to, and it's an absolute whirlwind. And you're meeting all these new faces, playing against new teams, and you're trying to understand how it works. You probably just downloaded Best Coast Pairings because that's what everyone uses, and you're trying to figure that out as well. Like you said, just go to have fun, and also your team very well, but you don't have to be an expert in like all the rules. It is possible that you something crops up and you don't know the answer to it, but there'll be TOs, there'll be judges around that you can say, this scenario has just happened here, and I'm just not quite sure, and they'll be able to help out and say that's what you need to do here, or get another set of eyes on it to figure it out. And like you said at the start, just modify your win condition a little bit. It's unrealistic to say I'm going to come here and get gold, although some people have. We saw that, didn't we?
Yeah,
one of your opponents at Warhammer World, I forgot her name, but they just did that with their first tournament playing Colts. But yeah, just think, first and foremost, want to have fun. Maybe I want to leave here. If this is, I'm really new to Kill Team, I just want to know all the rules to my team when I come out and have it almost rote learned. So when I go home and play in my local scene, I don't have to get the book out and check it. I know what the stats are, that sort of thing. We're all here to have fun at the end of the day. It's a really fun game. We all enjoy it. Just it's a game. Try not to overthink it too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you touched on a few points there. Like it was Triss at Warhammer World that
Triss, thank you. That was it. Yeah,
worked one previously with Chaos Colts, and then came to Warhammer World. I'm just like, I'm gonna have fun, learn a new team, and see what happens going forwards. And had a fantastic game. And then it was I played a Sanctuary in Summer Showdown before that, and it was Tom with his Vet Guard. He managed to win. I think he won the overall tournament as well. Won the overall tournament. I think that was his second tournament he's ever been to. So these things aren't impossible. And you also raised a really good point then, which is something I think is worth touching on. So, like, everyone makes mistakes. We're all human. People get rules wrong. I think it would be very disingenuous of me to even try and pretend that I've played every rule perfectly correctly every time. And that's not even a slight on humans in general. But like, sometimes the rules are they're not perfectly written, so there isn't an element of interpretation there where it's debated by the community, and maybe one community plays it one way, one community plays it a different way. The FAQs try to solve that, the erratas that are coming out, but occasionally those things exist, right? And I think like there's been quite a good example recently where that people what's coming more and more common is people are streaming high level tournament games, right? So we're starting to see more of the top players playing more frequently, and I think people are realizing that actually, well, yeah, like the top players are humans too. They make mistakes. They mismeasure. They get a rule slightly wrong, wherever it's going to be. Like they forget a special rule, like a limitation in a rule or whatever. It happens all the time, and you have to be embarrassed about it. Like you just have to say, if your opponent says, "I wasn't too sure it works like that," just go, "I'll just check it." Let's just check it, and make sure you play it right. Like getting your rulebook out isn't at all a bad thing, and like asking for a TO should never be a bad thing either. I think I'm a massive advocate of active judging. The TO should be sort of like passing by, and you can just say, "Hey, can you just quickly just measure this?" Or I think it might be this, but I'm not too sure. Can you just double check for me? And let that impartial person just come by and go yes or no, and they can help you get through that process. I think you've had some really good points there, Connor. And I just wanted to re-attack on them a little bit. But caution of time, should we press on to the final patron prize question?
Absolutely. Sure. Question 4. Recently, I've been playing. My playing experience has been on terrain layouts that aren't TPT or Into the Dark, and it's exposed to myself that I've learned how to play these maps through repetition rather than actually developing critical or creative thinking skills. What techniques or practices could I apply to make sure that I'm a more rounded player and able to problem solve new maps and not play to a set piece?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So again, good question, because it's focusing on this. So like, I think there's different ways to play Kill Team, and I think some people are very good at set plays, and like, so for instance, Into the Dark, I think much better for set plays. So like, you can learn certain movements. It's kind of like American football, right? And it's like you can learn certain movements that people are going to do, and if you play it in a certain way, it's going to work out in a way that's favorable for you. So you do this through repetition, and you go, cool, I now know how to get into every single one of these rooms on Turning Point 1 and get on the objectives through a sequence of moves, and I've got these redundancies where it's going to be. And then you're not really reacting, right? Whereas like, a lot of the open boards require you to be more flexible. It's more of your rugby or your football, whatever. I can't believe I'm using sports analogies. I'm clearly not a sports person, but here we go. But like, you're going to have to like just adapt to what you see, right? I think you would be disingenuous on yourself if you think that you haven't learned from these. That must be to the person asked the question. You haven't learned from these experiences. I think you have. You just haven't realised it yet. And I think my advice would be is going back to those basics and asking yourself, why did I choose that side? Like, what was it about that side that appealed to me? Or when I was designing these set pieces that I've been developing, why was it that side that I chose? And again, going back to those core principles of like, well, what does the vantage points look like? What does the routes to the objective look like? What's the deployment zone like? Does it have a lot of cover? Is it hard to place my models? Does it have enough placement? And what's the shooting angles going to be? And maybe I can actually cover this objective with this vantage point, but I can't cover that one. Or maybe, I can't even reach that objective on this side of the board because whatever reason. And then start going through the sort of assessment of heavy cover and where that cover is. So is an objective safer because it has heavy cover on it? Is the angle of the heavy cover relevant? Is there a way that you can use a barricade to make that heavy cover safer for yourself? And then finally, check TAC ops as well. Maybe there's an element to, well, I'm playing against a team that has security. So what is it about the team security that I need to really focus on? So maybe there's a piece of terrain that lets them put lots of models on the center line safely, or there's one that lets them put lots of models into the center objective. Maybe by taking one side, you're going to force them to have models out of cover or use barricades in a weird way or whatever, and it's going to be less optimal for them to do that. So just have a look at that and go, what can I do here to make this harder for my opponent to score? And I think that's like the key bits of advice that I would give. And you can obviously, you can re-listen to the terrain podcast that we did, and maybe it's something that we need to revisit, or even do like a little PDF guide for the patrons, something like that, maybe, just to like rehash those core principles. But I think they will be there. I think you sort of answer the question ahead of time before you got to the table, and you just need to give yourself that 2 minutes of looking at the table and actually assessing it, and just having those big questions. Which side has the safer deployment zone? Which side has better routes to the objective? Which side has better shooting lanes to the objective? Is there one side that has more heavy cover than the other? And is there a way to affect TAC ops or scoring on one side of the board or not? Ask yourselves those quick questions and go, yes, no, maybe, and then figure it out from there. And have that sort of like dialogue with your opponent being like, do you have any faction TAC ops that is going to affect X or Y? And then go, oh yeah, I've got this. And you go, okay, that's interesting. Or what's your archetypes? Oh, I'm locked in security only. Okay, that's interesting. And you can have that sort of like analysis going into the game, because I think it is there. It's just in the back of your mind because you've done it ahead of time before you get into the table. And now it's about quickly doing it when you're at the table under a bit of time pressure, and you're going, oh, I'll just quickly choose this. And you haven't done that actual process that you used to do because you'd already done it quite a lot. And I think the other thing that I would say on that is the TPT maps are only very slightly asymmetric. They are generically quite similar, so it's only a small advantage. So if you get it wrong, you don't really get stung that hard. But look for, on other maps and other designs, look for the big asymmetric advantages. There's going to be one or two of them potentially, and you can go, got it. This is what we'll do, and maybe it's an advantage that gives you a certain amount of dominance over an objective, whatever it's going to be. Look for that. And try and don't just automatically take attacker if you're not too sure. Okay, I think that answers that, Connor. But do you have anything else that you want to say on that?
I think you've absolutely nailed the pre-game assessment as you come to the table. But I think we should also go into Turning Point 1 as well, because I think that's where you can also go wrong with a new board. Just make sure that you're also thinking about your asymmetric shooting and asymmetric charge ranges, that you're not putting someone out that means that at the start of Turning Point 1 he's just going to get killed as soon as your opponent moves or does something. It's those basics that we discussed right at the beginning of our podcast, I think. But that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in that, if you can do this, visualizing that deployment, where you go, right, where is this model going to deploy, and where are they going to go to, and how much movement are they going to take to get there, and sort of work your way through that Turning Point 1. I think that's a really good point. And then you'll go, and you'll spot the issue, right? And you'll go, oh no, actually, I need to put 2 models on this objective because they're elites, and I can't reach that because I'm not going to have enough cover where it's going to be. So doing that thought process, playing out that turn 1 a little bit, it's kind of like chess, isn't it? Getting as many moves ahead as you can. And that'd be a great way of doing it. All right, Connor, unless there's anything else that you want to throw in right now, I think it's going to bring us into the episode.
Well, hopefully if you're listening this far, we haven't deleted it, that's what I'll say.
Anything is possible. Anything is possible. What I will say actually is I think there's probably going to be a little bit of flex over the next few months as we try and find timing in Connor's somewhat hectic schedule. Apparently having kids and having a job is apparently busy. And when you try and tell your missus that you need to talk about toy soldiers again,
spent a lot of milk money on models. Sorry.
Who needs nappies when you can have an XV25? No, I was joking. But so hopefully to those people listening, you did find something new whilst listening, and it was useful. If you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as the next one drops. That really is a great way of supporting a small channel like ours. Again, a quick reminder, 25th, 26th of November, we are selling out tickets real fast. There's only 12 tickets left, and we're probably going to buy some more ourselves, essentially. So 12 tickets left out of 64. It's going to be a massive event. It's on track to be the biggest London event ever, which is pretty damn cool. So if we can sell out and make that happen, that would be absolutely epic. So make sure you represent your local scene. Come down to London. You can turn up for a day. You can turn up for 2 days. You can turn up for, just a Sunday only. There's prizes for everyone. There's a little gift when you turn up. It's going to be an awesome time. Finally, if you want early access to all of our content, we do have a Patreon where you get exclusive access to all this content ahead of time. And it's all available there with access to our Discord and all sorts of good stuff as well. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Do you agree with what we've set up above? Maybe you have some extra tips for our patrons out there that they've asked their questions. Feel free to chuck them on the comments so the patrons can read that and see what you think. And if it's a question or comment for us, then we'll get right to you as well. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Ryan. This has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.